To make creme brulee, you need 2 cups of heavy cream, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 8 large eggs, half a cup of sugar to both mix into the cream and to sprinkle on top for the caramelized topping. We all think we know what these foods are. Eggs come from chicken, cream comes from cows, vanilla comes from beans, but do you actually know what it is you're eating? No, you don't? Oh, well then I'll explain. And while we're at it, let's make some creme brulee. First, preheat the oven to 250. Then, we heat the cream until it's simmering. But first, let's establish exactly what cream is. When a cow is milked, there's a lot of butterfat in the milk that rises to the top because it is less dense than the rest of the milk. But the milk we drink doesn't have this layer of fat. That's because the top layer of fat is removed and is called cream. When you mix cream and egg yolks, you get custard, which is used in creme brulee, but I will elaborate on this later. Next, we separate the egg yolks from the rest of the egg and put the yolk in its own container. An egg is actually a single cell. It's one of the very few single cells that we can actually see without a microscope. The eggs are made of 2 main parts, the egg white and the egg yolk. The egg white is made of mostly protein albumin. It is there to protect the eggs and to provide nutrition. We are going to use the inside part of the egg, the yellow yolk. The egg yolk has all the vitamins of the cell and also has the protein, carbohydrates, and lecithin. Lecithin is made of fatty acids, the components that make up the membranes of a cell. But because one end is hydrophilic, which means it likes water, and the other end is hydrophobic, which is the opposite, it makes a good emulsifier. It helps mix oil and water. If you mix the proteins of the yolk thoroughly with the oil and water, lecithin will help keep everything mixed. That is why, when I isolate the egg yolk, it sticks together. It has a strong membrane around it. I can poke it and all, and it doesn't fall apart. Now, time for the sugar. The sugar I will use is sucrose. Sugar is a carbohydrate. It is made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and the simplest sugar is actually C6H12O6. There are a number of different ways that these molecules can be arranged. Here are 2 different structures that you can get from the same basic unit. The one on the left is called glucose, and the one on the right is called fructose. Now, these sugars vary in different ways, but the basic unit is arranged in different ways to make 2 different things with the same molecules. And the sugar we will use, which is the white stuff you get in packets or have in jars, is called sucrose, which is made of both of these, glucose and fructose joined together. Other sugars you have heard of are lactose, or milk sugar, which is also made of 2 sugars. It's a disaccharide, composed of galactose and glucose. Ribose is also another sugar we've heard of in class. It is found in every nucleotide that makes up RNA and DNA. The way artificial sweeteners work is that they take on the ring shape that makes it look like a real sugar. That way, they can stimulate the receptors on our taste cells. However, they are not really sugars found in nature, so we don't have enzymes to break them down, so they don't get digested. It is the shape of the sugar molecule that binds to a receptor on our taste buds. These receptors are just like the receptors we learned about on dendrites. When they bind to sugar, the receptor activates an enzyme, which activates another enzyme, positive feedback, which opens up a channel and ions flow across. That is all we need to taste sweetness. Once we've swallowed the sugar, then we can digest it so that we can use it for our own energy. When we eat, the sucrose is neatly broken down by the enzyme invertase into fructose and glucose. At the end of the term, we learned how glucose is broken down to make ATP. Some of the sugars are also broken up to build molecules in the cell. Now that we know about sugar and eggs, we mix the sugar with the egg yolks, and then we whisk the mixture. Once the mixture has been slightly mixed together, we start to pour in the cream. First, we only are going to pour in 1/3 of the hot cream and whisk it in. You cannot pour all of the cream in at once, or else the eggs will become scrambled. When an egg is heated, the white globular proteins around the egg bounce around and the protein change natures. When the bond reforms, you have scrambled eggs, but we don't want that for creme brulee. So, we pour in the rest of the cream slowly and mix some more. Now we strain the mixture to remove any lumps and add vanilla. Vanilla is a bean that comes from an orchid. It originally grew along the Gulf Coast in Mexico, where they are known as Mexican beans, but they were replanted in Madagascar, Indonesia, and Tahiti, where they are known as bourbon beans. The local climate and soil will affect their taste. They are long and slender, and due to their rich taste and fewer seeds. The bean is sliced along the length, and half a bean will be mixed in with the cream. If one cannot find vanilla, as I couldn't, they can use vanilla extract, which is a lot easier to come by. You can use a mixture of 35% alcohol and water to extract the compound vanillin from the bean. It is an organic compound that is made of 8 carbons, 8 hydrogens, and 3 oxygens. Now, we fill a ceramic bowl, which is actually called a ramekin, that the creme brulee will be served in, and we put it in a tray of boiling water. Now, cook for 30 minutes. By cooking the ramekin in water, it makes all of the creme brulee get cooked evenly all around. Now, we will take it out soon and let it cool for 4 to 5 hours. The final step of the creme brulee is to cover the top with a small amount of white sucrose, then heat it on top. That is what we're going to do. It'll give that nice firm texture on top. It is also what gives it that special taste. If you've ever had a good creme brulee, even though the top is made of only a teaspoon of sugar, it tastes very different than normal sugar. When we heat the sugar with the flame, the energy causes the sucrose to break down and reform, and break down and reform, and break down and reform, until 128 different molecules each have its own color, taste, and smell. One of these compounds, biacetyl, which is C4H6O2, is what gives the cooked sugar a warm and buttery scent. But sugar doesn't always taste the same. Why? Well, that is because the mixture of different compounds give different tastes. Some are more sour, some are bitter, some are aromatic, and some give coloring. That's why butterscotch and caramel are so different, yet so similar. As you increase the heat, you get different reactions. So with a low heat, you get a reaction they call enolization. And with a slightly higher heat, you get something they call dehydration. With even hotter mix, diacetyl cleavage. I don't really know what diacetyl cleavage is, but it makes it look very different at different temperatures. Hotter still, you get retroaldenization. Hotter still, you get radical reaction. And once you get to 410 degrees Fahrenheit, you just get carbon. Think of what a marshmallow looks like after you burn it over a fire. Here are a few of the compounds made. Scientists have actually mapped out each of the stages in the process of heating the sugar. As you increase the heat, you get different chemical reactions. So a few of the products that result from the breakdown of sucrose are here. The ones on the left actually have a distinctive smell that affects the taste. Now, sprinkle sugar on top, and then you'll have 2 choices. If you buy the special torch, then you can torch the creme brulee for about 20 seconds. But the other way is if you just put it in the boiler very briefly until it's bubbled up and calmed down. I don't have a torch, so I use the broiler. When heating sugar above 335 degrees, the sucrose gets a very rich flavor, and the colored compound starts to form, which gives the creme brulee that burnt caramel color to the shell. Some of the color compounds are formed by the heating are also used for things like sodas and soy sauce. So that's it.